In today's video, we're going to create some very unique and stylized characters from the vegetable besotted world of Turnip28.
We need them to look super gross, grotty, dirty, disgusting, all of the above to incorporate what Turnip28 is all about. And we're going to do all of that with the help of today's sponsor, Hero Forge. This is going to be an absolutely amazing project.
But to do all this, we're going to need Dave, which I haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, no. Does it smell like carrots to you?
Turnip28 is a beautiful world. It's a miniatures game based on a whole bunch of sensible folk who worship root vegetables. There's so much room for creative interpretation and the game really encourages kit bashing. But one of the things I'm aware of is that people have a whole bunch of different skill sets, and while a lot of people love the idea of kit bashing things, not everyone has the parts or the capability to do it by hand. So there's some really cool tools available like Hero Forge's kit bashing that let you basically digitally mock things up. I want to see if we can create our interpretations of some of the more fun and wacky models in Turnip28. The two I've chosen for that are the Aunt's Ascendant, which are a set of flying aunties in a hot air balloon, and a Snail Knight, because who doesn't love the concept of a man riding a snail? So come with me on the journey of creating these minis that Murray and Jen are going to paint up as I create them in Hero Forge and hopefully show you the value of becoming one with the root. I'm fine. Now, once upon a time, Hero Forge was your simple D&D character maker, but now there's so many things that I think we'll be able to make something really fun for Turnip. And the type of unit that's caught my eye, because, well, I know how much Jen loves cute garden things, are the Snail Knights. And thankfully, relatively recently, Hero Forge actually added the snail as a mount option. So with that added, I thought, hey, let's make a Snail Knight. So we start with our mount, which is fully posable, which allowed me to slightly modify the base pose, move those little eye stalks around and make the snail look a little bit fun. But most of the work is going to be on decorating this. And while I do expect that Jen and Murray are going to have some fun with some tufts and mud after the fact, the base mesh needs to have that turnipy vibe, a little bit ramshackle and put together by these crazy root vegetable worshipping freaks. For the rest of the snail, we needed a saddle, so I could use a shield at the front of this to create this really nice look and disguise the front of the saddle where it would be, well, meant to sit on something that's not a snail. I had to decide between him sitting on the back of the snail or more towards the front, and I think the front made sense, but that did mean I had to build using trees, branches, and fishing rods that would make sense of how the seat was actually attached to the snail. Now, as a knight, he is a landowner, of course. That's what it means to be a knight. And the land that he owns is this planter pot box on the back of his snail. He travels around with his holdings because this little bit of fertile land can grow onions, which is of course a very, very luxurious and wonderful thing to have if you're a knight. And he likes to travel around and show off his beautiful little planter pot and its onions. He also has a giant onion, the prize onion that he grew in his garden that he's transporting around as well. And as for the weapons, I put some extra weapons on the snail, including a shield, because I like to pose my characters a little bit, so I used the kit bashing features to custom move his hand and make it holding on to the front of his saddle while he held a massive pole hammer, something suitable for fighting on the back of a snail. As well as this, so many of the turnip characters have root vegetable-y faces. So for this guy, I shrunk down a wizard's hat, this crinkly thing, and stretched it out of his face and bent the tip down so it effectively looked like the art that we find in Turnip with these curled nose helmets. They've built this helmet out to basically evoke the most root vegetable-y vibe they could. Now the snail needed a little bit of love too, and Jen requested that I make him special. So I created a little armored helmet for the snail in the form of this visor, once again using kit bashing, and also gave it a noble knight's beard. Does this make any sense? No. Does it have to make sense? No. It looks funny. So we have a snail with a beard because he is a distinguished snail knight as well. And that's fantastic. So that's what we're doing there. Now, all of this was only made possible because of the kit bashing features, which you actually need to be a pro subscriber to Hero Forge to do, but I really do think it's worth it. The level up on on your creations, being able to repose, have that freedom, being able to add items like you've seen me do with this wonderful snail knight is absolutely worth the price of admission if you're a regular DM or like to make custom creations. I also love the proportion tweaking and face editing that effectively allows me to create miniatures that feel suitable in whatever game I'm making them for, as opposed to miniatures that always kind of fit in that generic Hero Forge style. And as an advanced 3D printer, I also disable the print improvements. They have automatic print improvements that make them better for 3D printing, but if you know what you're doing, you can turn that off and you can really have a lot of control with the proportions, the scope, the finger size, as long as your 3D printer and your skills are up for it. But that's enough Snail Knight. I want to see Snail Knight painted, and it'll be up to Jen to paint that because I need to move on and work on Murray's model.
Lunchtime. So the model that Dave has made on Hero Forge is all printed, so let's go have a quick look at it. Really hopeful it turned out really, really cute.
Oh my god, it looks so fucking cute. There's a snail in the middle. Look at the snail guy. Look at the snail guy. He's just a snail guy.
This is so cute. Oh my god, I love it so much. Dave has done an amazing job of like translating an idea into a miniature. This is so much better than I could ever try to do kit bashing. The fact that the snail has a beard is so good. What I'll try and do, I'll do a influencer. See? Yeah. Yeah, look at that bad boy. Don't focus on my gigantic forehead. There's a couple of supports still on there. This model is quite fragile, so I left a couple of the supports on so I could get them off now once it's cured to make them a bit stronger. He also has a couple of holes, including one on his butt, so I'm gonna fill those, yeah, get the supports off, and then we can start painting it, which is super exciting. Yeah, let's do it. So, time to start painting. And I've learnt my lesson from a couple of recent videos. I have decided to spray this black, not white, because we love Chaos Black spray now. 'Tis the goat. So after spraying everything black, I could get started on the part that I really wanted to do first. I think with miniatures, I gravitate towards a certain aspect of it and think, hey, if I paint the thing I'm really excited about, I'll want to paint the rest of it. In this case, it was actually the shell of the snail. Now there was a little bit of texture on this snail shell, which is great. So I did want to try and incorporate a little bit of that into painting. I spent using a couple of different colored browns and yellows to try and get the sort of distinct lines that you see in a snail shell. And I really do enjoy this part of miniature painting. Just trying to make it look realistic is a lot of fun. It's the same with like trying to paint hair or like fur. I think those little intricate, very detailed and precise brush strokes to make a miniature look real is a lot of fun. And I also think it's super, super satisfying. Moving back and forth, I also decided to paint up the body of this very cute snail slimy boy, sort of starting in more of a pale range tone. For this entire model, I actually didn't go too dark to start off with. In the end, I decided to do a couple of contrast paint washes just to bring in a little bit of that saturation as well as that depth. And I think that this worked really well in the end. I also can't forget about the little tiny details, including his little helm and his beard. Again, trying to paint in those textures and opting for a non-metallic metal for this particular model. There wasn't too much metal to paint on this model entirely, despite the fact that the guy sitting on it is wearing armor, which is metal, but I decided to go back to doing non-metallic metal just because I find it kind of fun. I also find painting non-metallic metal can be expressive in a way versus just painting silver. Trying to sort of get the colors to match, the shadows, the light bouncing, all of that sort of stuff. I find that really interesting and it kind of makes my brain tick and think a lot more when I'm trying to paint a miniature. The other thing I wanted to keep in mind when painting this dude was how many shades of brown I would be potentially using and to try and make these very distinct. I think when you're painting something up that has a lot of stuff on it, brown, it's a very common color, especially in Turnip too. There's, well, the dirt, the snail, any of the wood pieces, including branches. There's a whole lot of brown in this model. It just means that I need to try and find the different colors within brown to make sure that they all don't look the same. Whether this is incorporating browns that have a little bit more red in them, maybe even moving more towards orange, or going in the opposite direction, so using browns that have more of a cooler tone to them. I think this this was really important, kind of a key to this model to make sure that it didn't all blend in together. So separating those browns into their different colors and also establishing what that color was. So all of the wood would be a reddy brown, the dirt would be more of a cooler brown, and so on and so forth. This model in general was a ton of fun to paint up. It was so cute looking at all of the little Easter eggs that Dave had put into this model and painting them up in my own way. I especially loved the wizard's hat that Dave had done for his nose. I think this is super turnipy and looks fantastic. I also adore his prized onion that he has on the back as well. I almost wish it had one of those like blue prize ribbons on it. That would have been amazing. And I also can't forget the beard that's on the snail, which just brings this model together so well. But that's pretty much it for painting, so we can move on to the base. So after a little bit of back and forth and debating on what base size that this model should go on, I decided I didn't want it to be too big that I'd have to sort of put a lot of effort into creating an environment. This guy has a lot on him, so the environment doesn't need to be massive, or I don't need to tell that much of a story with it. However, I did want to make it oval just so he could sit on it nicely. Again, I just wanted to keep this environment super swampy, muddy, dirty, gross, and also incorporate a little bit of this onto the snail himself. This meant putting some tufts in and a little bit of mud texture as well to look like this guy has been through the absolute ringer. He has not had a bath in days, maybe even years, I guess. And I think that worked really well with the particular tufts and overall theming that I chose. The last thing I needed to incorporate was to make this guy look super slimy. I mean, snails, slugs, they're slimy, right? And so I wanted to try and figure out a way I could make him look kind of gross and glistening. I played around with a couple of the Vallejo weathering pigments. There's a couple of rain textures that kind of worked okay. But in the end, I really wanted him to sort of look more gooby, more dribbly. And there was only one way I knew that I could achieve this really well, and that was using UV resin. So once I knew that the snail was all completely painted up and I wouldn't be touching him anymore, I basically coated this guy in UV resin, even trying my best to harden the little droplets of resin so that it looked a bit more globby, like he was really drenched in his snail slime, which is absolutely disgusting. But I have to say, I'm super happy with how this turned out. I also couldn't forget to do the little bit of the snail trail at the end of the base as well, so you could see where he had been. And this is him all done up, and oh my god, I love this so much. It's so cool and it's so fun. I think with my other models too, I think they'll go together really, really well. I love this dude. I actually think I want to try and make an entire army that are just guys on snails, or sort of around this sort of theming too. I think it could be really, really fun. He's gonna have an absolute prize place in my cabinet, and I can't wait to actually play with him as well. That'll be super fun.
Sponsor time. If you're interested in making really cool miniatures for your D&D sessions or just for the sheer thrill of it, you might be interested in today's sponsor. It is Hero Forge. Ta-da! How did that work out? So if you're still not entirely sure what Hero Forge actually is, it's a browser-based program which allows you to create your fantasy or even sci-fi miniatures, whether it be human scale, slightly larger, slightly smaller. You can have little halflings, little frog people, whatever you want. Literally, you can do whatever you want here. And I think we're proving that with the nonsense. We've got a hot air balloon and a snail knight. So clearly the possibilities are literally endless. But if merely making miniature isn't enough for you at home and you're a little bit of a dice gremlin, this next venture might be exactly for you. Hero Forge is making their newest feature, which is the ability to create dice, inserting your character, a weapon, an item, dearly departed in it? That was a sentence. Into the dice, you can have your character's face looking up at you in disappointment as you roll yet another one. You can get an entire roleplay set, you know, D20, D4s, D6s, D8, D12, all that goodness. It actually makes a fantastic gift idea for your buddy at the table or even your DM. So if any of that fun interests you, check out the links in the description below. It is currently live, it's already there. A huge thank you to Hero Forge for sponsoring this absolute nonsense. And now, back to the madness.
With Jen's miraculous dive into chivalry, it's time for us to explore some more wildness of Turnip28. And that wildness is going to be the Aunt's Ascendant. Yes, this model represents a faction that has a pair of movie critic, theater critic, aunties floating around or bumping around in a hot air balloon. For me, I imagine these as the female version of the Muppets sitting up in their little booth critiquing the stage play. And in the brief bit of lore we get for Turnip, it describes how people like to avoid it because they get a brick to the face, but also how this thing grinds along the ground very close to the surface and easily assailable. It's a weird and wacky thing, and it's something I just thought would be fun to make. The concept of two auntie character people on the battlefield is just amusing to me. So to create the basket, I used a bunch of wooden planks, and then I decorated the interior with some barrels, a nice bottle of wine, and some cheese, as well as, well, a stack of bricks to throw at people they disapprove of. Gone are the rotten tomatoes to throw at people you don't like. We don't have tomatoes in Turnip28, and why would we waste root vegetables? No, of course, we just throw bricks at people's faces. It seems the longer I've worked on this turnip project, the closer to the sickening world of turnip I've become, as I am infected with some kind of chest infection / throat cold virus. It's wonderful, so sorry about that if you're wondering why I sound like Chris Broad from abroad in Japan. But back to the aunties. For the two aunties, I decided both of them should be rather large. Big women, because it's really just the vibe I can see. These large critics eating their wine, drinking their cheese, very ab-fab. A little bit Kath and Kim for an Australian regional reference, maybe a touch of the Vicar of Dibley up there. Both of them I put large coats on, and there's some strange stuff happening in turnip art, so I decided to use the arse end of an insect for one of these women's faces. I don't know if she's mutated into a root vegetable or if she's wearing some kind of horrible mask, but regardless, she's wearing some beautiful spectacles she salvaged from the battlefield over the top. The closest thing I could find in Hero Forge to opera glasses. For the other lady, she's wielding a brick, ready to throw it, and she has that classic shortcut hair. I don't know, maybe I'm just starting to reflect on some of the aunties I was around when I grew up in regional Australia, but I can imagine this woman with a Bundaberg rum bottle in one hand and her flip-flop ready to be thrown at you in the other. For the top part of this barge of beautiful buxom bodies, I decided to use basically a giant onion, and then I layered on top of that to give the layers of the onion, because the only thing I know about onions is from Shrek. Onions have layers, so we've just put some of these on to give a bit of texture. But I also decorated the whole thing with a few hanging ropes as well as a pennant flag, and connected it with some chains, and then exported the two pieces separately so that Murray could glue them together however he wanted. Does he want this dragging along the ground? Does he want it floating in the sky? I don't know, it's kind of up to him. But I cannot wait to see what he does with our beautiful relatives as they soar through the sky. And as you can once again see, all of this made possible with kit bashing. I mean, the entire basket was produced with kit bashing, and the way that I decorated those same wooden planks to look distinctly different, adding those bits of parchment on one side, adding some ropes and onions, because of course, that's what we need to release if we want to gain altitude, we got to drop some onions. And really, I will say I lent on onions a lot, and that's because onions are the only root vegetable in Hero Forge. So Hero Forge, I mean, we got to see some turnips in here, come on. And Murray's going to be asking for us to give him the turnip as we 3D print this. I'm going to hollow it out, get it ready to go, and we're going to see what he does with these lovely ladies. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to go cough in the corner and die. Have fun.
All right, so Dave has handed me this pair of characters that appear to be two aspiring hot ballooners floating a turnip around the battlefield. I'm not entirely sure what their shtick is. However, it seems to be throwing bricks and sandals at people. All power to them, based even. However, this does present me with a bit of a challenge, namely, how does one make this attach? Now, Dave has provided me with 4 lengths of chain coming up from the bottom of the basket, and I gather the intention is to attach that to the overswollen vegetable that is providing all the buoyancy here. However, that's about where the breadcrumb trail ends. I'm going to try a few things, namely super glue, and that's not going to grab. It's just, it doesn't have enough bite. And honestly, I don't think it provides much in terms of structural integrity. And so my backup plan was going to be trying to use some wire and trying to basically suspend this a bit. That's going to be a bit messy, and honestly, that sort of detracts from the joy of all the resin itself. But then Jen actually came up with a really good idea. Why don't I use UV resin? And after a very small experiment, I found that this would work perfectly. And so I just set about applying this, deciding to go with my gut instinct of, I just want resin to be visible here. No wires, no nothing. I attached the, shall we call it the base of the balloon, basically to the head of one of the aunties here. This is going to provide, for better or worse, most, if not all of the support, while all the dangling chains will then come to grips and help support everything later. And the best part about attaching it like this is that as it solidifies and actually takes hold, I can build up from that to make it even stronger in the areas I want to. In fact, I can actually do a little bit of sculpting as I attach the wires and the chains here. So I can actually build up the UV resin around the ends of these chains here, where they have this sort of handle where I guess the Hero Forge models would usually hold on to. But here, this is where the balloon is going to hold on to. This is going to be some extra matter that's sort of been pinched in and then pulled taut. So really, this is probably going to allow me to attach the model in a better way than I could have done it digitally, I suppose. Anyway, it works and it's not falling apart. Haha. One win to the human. And with that done, I'm going to ignore how to attach it to a base and I'm just going to start painting. Since this is a model with many different components on it, I'm going to go with a very broad underpainting method, bringing in all that sort of grimy, dirty, ready grunge for the Turnip28 universe, and then I can use that as the basis to start painting everything up from there. However, I'm going to start with the largest area here, which is the levitation lettuce or whatever it is, applying different greens, making sure that they're not too hearty a green. I want this to look a bit just, you know, a bit moldy. Like you wouldn't really want to eat this, but still it's going to, well, provide some levity to this situation. And it is definitely going to be the brightest part of this model. Everything else is going to be a lot more sepia toned, lots of browns and grunge. The two individuals themselves I want to help stand out as well, just a little bit. And I decided I could almost go for just a little bit of a yin and yang between them. One would be in a very dirty white sort of dress, and the other has got this sort of admiral's uniform. So I'm going to go for a very off black, adding trims of yellow and red as I see fit. Only when I'm happy that these two characters are really going to stand out in this model here, I'm going to start moving on to all the little detail pieces. The bits of wood, the bricks on the barrel here, all the chains and the metal grappling hook that's sort of swaying, it is swaying in the air. As well as all the little parchment and pumpkin doodads. The final step here will actually to be painting the basket itself, as since I was reaching in with brush to paint all the occupants a lot, I'd get a lot of spillover. So I figured that I'd leave these bits of wood until the very last. And I'm pretty happy I made that decision. However, there is one more stage which I finally have to acknowledge, and that's the base. Now, Turnip28 is known for its, you know, sort of leeway in modeling and sculpting. And this balloon is described as either floating high above everything or practically dragging along the ground. And I think the latter is particularly funny and will allow me for just a little bit of extra story and narrative in making the base itself. And so I'm going to use a dirty brown sculpting medium to sort of make this big furrow in the base here. This giant furrow marks the passage of the basket as it sort of trundles along, not quite gaining altitude as the two aunties bicker about why they aren't going up yet, and whose crockery set it really is weighing down the basket. Once that's all dry, I'm going to give the entire base a lick of paint just to draw all that cohesion together so there's no black showing through, and I can start decorating it with all these lovely raggedy tufts and bits of grass. And once that's all dry, it's time to use UV resin once again to attach these skybound seniors to the base itself, and they can sort of meander about as they see fit. Considering the context of what Dave has built, this is incredible that he's actually managed to build this out of Hero Forge. He's done a ridiculously good job, and I hope you think so too, and you enjoy this little paint job that I've done here. And so we shall go to reveals, and I shall spare you any more of my voice.
March unto your fertile plough, carry the rod. Carrot, 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 carry the rod. Carrot, carrot, carrot. March unto your fertile plough. carry the rod. Carrot, 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 carrot.
Ta-da!
We have our madness.
Yay!
How do you even describe this? Turnip is such a mood.
100%. I think you take mine.
Oh?
Okay, and I'll take yours. I'm going to hold it like this, right?
Oh my gosh, he's so glossy and sticky and snaily.
This is so cool. I love that you got it dragging along the ground in the
Yes.
end as well. I think that solved a lot of problems. It also looks like I shouldn't be holding this by the top. I think that's like the most structurally integral part. Like that's
Yes.
the safest way to hold it. This is awesome. This is so flippin' cool.
Yeah, I actually haven't really seen yours. I didn't even realize you had like a little vegetable garden on them.
Yeah. I was saying to Dave earlier in the video that these guys, the aunties, remind me of the Muppets. The
Yes.
two. Yeah. Okay.
The two old guys.
Yeah. So I was hoping that you kind of got that vibe while you were painting them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is so sick. I'd love to fight you with this and with him. I think it'd be so much fun.
Well, I think this has just been an absolute exercise in nonsense that you can actually come up with. Because Hero Forge, you usually see a lot of, heroic, well put together individuals. And we have
Insanity.
What is this guy? This guy looks more like a Muppet than my guy.
Yeah,
And he's riding a snail.
So yeah, if you want to get started with Hero Forge, maybe you want to create your own turnip models, or maybe for a different game as well, their possibilities are absolutely endless. So make sure you go check them out. Links are down in the description below, and you could make some awesome models like we have for this one. And also thanks, Dave, for making us these as well.
Yeah, he did a great job.
Yeah.
How are we going to top this?
I don't know, but I think we need to now make armies for turnip. So, do you want to see a turnip battle report? Better like and
Yeah,
subscribe.
let us know.
Yeah, let us know. See you in the next one. Bye.